Hello everybody, it's Stephen here, and today I'm going to be doing my first ever book tag, outside of my newbie tag that is, and it is the Get to Know Your Fantasy Reader tag. Now, here goes. So, question 1. What is your fantasy origin story? So, the first fantasy novel you ever read. When I was younger, I read a lot of Roald Dahl books like the BFG, The Witches, as well as books by Enid Blyton like The Secret Seven. They definitely kicked off my love of fantasy books, but they weren't the books that I officially read. Now, when I was old enough to pick up books by myself, the first one that I picked up was called Last of the Wren Shy by Mikizuka Reichhardt. She's probably the biggest reason I kept on reading, as her books really helped me out when I was younger, and I've kept up with her books even today. Number 2. If you could be the hero in a fantasy novel, who'd be the author and what's the one trope you'd insist on being in the story? I'd have to say Kugan Maruyama. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's the one who writes the Overlord novel series. He's one of the reasons I actually got into light novels in the first place. As for the trope, I'd say isekai, which is where you're either summoned or reincarnated into another world, normally as the hero. Okay, question number 3. What is a fantasy you've read this year that you want more people to read? For me, it'd be Ascendance of a Bookworm by Mia Kazuki would be the first one that came to my mind, as it is one that I picked up recently and have been obsessed with. The story has me gripped, and I'm already counting down the days until the next book is released in the series. Okay, question 4. What is your favourite fantasy subgenre? What subgenre have you not read much from? I think at the moment I'd have to say isekai or high fantasy. Both are set in different worlds other than our own, so they share a similar kind of theme. But as long as it has a fantasy element in it, you can normally count me being there. As for one that I haven't read much of at the moment, I'd probably say more a romance kind of sub-theme. I've got a few books that they have some romance elements in, but it's not the major overriding genre, and I do actually quite like a good rom-com every now and again, so I think I'd like to actually pick up a few more books along those kind of themes going forward. I just need to find the one that actually piques my interest first. Question 6. Who is one of your autobuy fantasy authors? Actually, I have so many, because with light novels they tend to be serialized, so they tend to go on for a very long time, so there's actually quite a few that I would actually pick up. Outside of the light novel, I'd have to say Patrick Rothfuss. I picked up his books on a recommendation from an old work colleague, and I love them. He's a bit of a slow writer, as some of you may know, so I just can't wait for the next one to come out, and as soon as I know it's out, I'll be putting in my advanced order. So, question number 6. How do you typically find your fantasy recommendations? Usually through release schedules for light novels, either by other YouTubers, so thank you very much for the people who do those, or go straight to the sites of the publishers. I've started doing a monthly video on upcoming releases myself, and I'm really excited to see how that goes, so why don't you take a moment to actually look at my last one, see what you think, and give me some recommendations on how you think I did and what you think I could do to improve on it. I know it's a bit of a shameless plug, so sorry on that one everybody, but you know, I just couldn't resist. Okay, question number 7. What is an upcoming fantasy release that you're excited for? I can't wait to get my hands on the next Ascendance of a Bookworm and the Overlord series. I have both on pre-order, and I can't wait to get my hands on both of them. Overlord's coming out later this month, and Ascendance of a Bookworm is coming out early next month, I think around the 5th. Okay, question number 8. What is the one misconception about fantasy you'd like to lay to rest? For me, it's that you can't get the same enjoyment out of books as you can TV shows and movies. That is one of the things that people I know can't seem to get over. They're willing to watch TV shows and movies like Game of Thrones, True Blood, the Marvel MCU universe, DC movies, things like that. But as soon as you actually mention picking up a book, their eyes glaze over. How can you get the same enjoyment out of a book when you can't see what is happening? Or why would I bother reading when I can watch a film in very little amount of time and still get the same story? For me, it's getting across that both have their own place. I'd love to people to give books a try, as I believe more people would realise how good they are and how engrossing compared to movies. People seem to have a misconception that books don't have the same impact as movies because they don't have the special effects, and I'd like to get over that is simply not the case. Okay, number 9. If someone had never read a fantasy book before and asked you about a recommendation, what are the first 3 books that come to your mind? So for me, the first one would be Brandon Sanderson's and his Mistborn series. I think it's actually a really good starting point for people getting into the fantasy genre. Next, it would be Maya Kazuki and the Ascendance of the Bookworm. As I said, it's a really good paced story and an engrossing storyline. And finally, I'd say Mikizuka Reichardt and the Last of the Renshai series, because that's what got me back into reading in the first place, and I still find myself reading those books every now and again myself. Okay, finally, number 10. Who is the most recent fantasy reading content creator you have come across that you'd like to shout out? Honestly, I've just gotten into BookTube, so I'm still learning everybody's channels and names. So I'll just list a few people I have been watching this last week. I'll link their channels below. I hope they don't mind me linking them in here. So first would be Himeka. Her channel is focused mainly on manga. Next, it would be Leia the Dreamer. She's a new author who writes poetry and has been doing some videos around the meaning of the poetry she's been writing. She's also looking at doing writing prompts as well for upcoming authors. Next, it would be Lost in a Bookcase, as I've been watching some of her tags recently, and she's the one who gave me the ideas for actually doing some tags and even gave me some recommendations in her comments, so thank you very much for that. And then last but not least, it would be An Erudite Adventure, and they tend to talk about fantasy books, and I've been watching a lot of their content recently. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.